and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kelly O'Horo here with Infinite Healing and Wellness, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about some things pertinent to being a clinician in practice during COVID-19 and some things that are pertinent. As a practice, we're a very integrative clinic, and we treat clinicians or clients rather based on EMDR therapy. For those of you who understand EMDR therapy or are trained in that modality, it's a very integrative approach. It's based on adaptive information processing. And with that, what we understand is we're treating the whole system and the whole human, and we don't negate any other theories. We bring those into the entire processing. But we look through the conceptualization of the treatment plan through the adaptive information processing model, which is how we conceptualize the whole case. And it's a body treatment modality, so it's great for treating trauma. And so we use that at Infinite Healing and Wellness. And that's one thing that makes us a little bit different than some other practices in the country. And so I'd like to introduce those who have joined me today to talk a little bit about what's been happening for us and what it's been like doing telehealth in this strange time. And so without further delay, Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie McAllister.
This will be easy. I'm the other Julie Russomanno.
And I'm Nate Perrizo.
Yeah, and we're really fortunate because we have a really broad variety of training and certifications and trainers and facilitators with EMDR therapy. And so we really are conscientious about our consultation. And so we try to bring to our clients and to the community as cutting edge information as we can, as high end research as we can get our hands on. And we really try to keep our practice fresh and up to date. So today you're going to hear some things that will maybe a little bit new for you, but everything that we mentioned will be based in research for sure. So without further ado, we want to make sure that we're normalizing the experiences that you're having. And so the whole talk today will be really about that, normalizing. And we're going to talk about things that are working and how we're dealing with the things that are coming up in a telehealth setting that many of you are likely experiencing. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is how to be creative in this setting, because we are a little bit limited in the in-person dynamics that we were used to being able to rely upon. And this past year, we went to a training. Actually, it was at EMDR, and Aude de Jong presented EMDR 2.0, and he followed that with another in-person and webinar series on EMDR 2.0. And so we're fortunate enough to have a lot of experience and time with him. And one of the things that has been really beneficial for is the way we can adjust the original thinking about EMDR, not changing the standard protocol at all, but the way in which we understand how it works and why it works. So we originally believed that with the research, the reason that it worked was because of bilateral stimulation, and we would say BLS, and that's the hand, the movements with the eyes. And it's not that doesn't work. We know that works, but he did some research where there was some elimination of just BLS, and they added what we would call dual attention stimulus. And so we're saying now dual attention stimulus. We're not exactly sure if it's BLS, but that dual attention stimulus seems to be taxing the working memory with the standard EMDR protocol. And so that being said, there's a little bit of a shift in the way we can do our bilateral stimulation or dual attention stimulus that actually works really awesome in a telehealth setting and helps to get around associative deficiencies in a way a person might show up. And so we're really finding a lot of benefits with that. So Julie's going to speak a bit about how that might look and ways that you can beef up your EMDR success.
Yeah, I think it really does beef it up. I think that's a good way to explain that. It's been pretty successful doing telehealth this way because of all of the different things that we're adding in with the dual attention stimuli. I think it really ups the ante. So some of the ways that we're doing that is, once we complete our target setup and we jump in and we're processing, we can slowly start adding things that tax the working memory. It could be something like just naming things like states or countries, animals, different things like that. We may be doing different series of tapping, not just tapping, left to right in a bilateral way, but we might have 2 taps on one side and 1 on the other, or some creative things with the tapping that way. The other thing is just doing simple math problems, things like that that we can add. And there's also some really great apps out there that do the bilateral with the different, little ball that'll go across the screen. And then we can do that simultaneously with some different tapping or some different naming. We can change the speeds of those tools that are out there. And another thing that works really well is to just do some shoulder taps. If you have your patient doing the shoulder taps and then you're doing it with them, you can actually have their eyes follow and look on either side as you're doing that, which is going to be different than a butterfly hug. And Kelly, I think you'd like to chime in about butterfly hug.
So all of the research around EMDR in a telehealth setting is really on butterfly hugs. And so they found great success with using butterfly hugs to have that dual attention stimulus modality. And you could also add things like Julia's talking about. But something I want you to consider is that we're associative beings. And so we are taught to use butterfly hugs in a slow fashion in training to install safe place and for a grounding mechanism. And I'll tell you, I use this with my clients using calm state or just safe state. And my body goes automatically into a parasympathetic state when I put my hands up, because I have my clients go into a down-regulated place before I start working with them, making sure all parts are online and we're ready to get started. And when we tune in here and I put my hands up here, my body has a memory created. And so we really want to be cautious, right, that we don't confuse the memory network and now create a new association to get the painful stuff out with fast BLS in a quick butterfly hug when this was originally a resource in your office. And so I just want to caution you to consider, if you're going to do something that you use this way, make a modification. Like Julie said, throw your arms out further. Now it's a little bit different in the memory network. Make sure you're going as fast as they can tolerate.
Yeah.
That's grounding. They're grounding themselves physically, but you can also tap on they can have them tap on their legs. And even though you can't see it, you usually could hear it. I can hear my clients tapping, right? So they're with you. And that will help to not cloud up the memory network and create a confusion in the associative network with memory, that this is a grounding resource and now we're using it to process trauma. So just a caution to consider.
One of the things that I also do is I'll have my clients march in place, either sitting down or standing up. A lot of times I'll have people stand up and be marching and using their arms and stuff, so they kind of get their whole body into it. I think that really helps, especially for people who might be, more defended or flood easier, to get more of the body involved. That's been helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something that for those of you who are thinking we sound super crazy with what we're saying, I can understand that. It does seem a little bit weird and woo-woo. But the way I explain it to my clients is, it's kind of like when you tap your head and rub your tummy at the same time. It's really hard to focus and concentrate in tapping your head and rubbing your tummy. So when we load that emotional data in phase 3 of the EMDR protocol and we're ready and you're like, what's the SUD? Where is it in your body? And when you're ready to get started, you've brought that affect up front and center to that working memory place. And so the reason that we think that it works is because you can't defend against all this, weird stuff that we might have you do in a dual attention stimulus way. You're still creating taxing working memory via dual attention stimulus, but that's where desensitization seems to be happening. And so it does seem weird, but it really is super effective. Something that I'll do sometimes is, I don't want to activate the shame network if they feel foolish or they had school issues and they didn't know the states or they missed their 5th grade year or things like that. And so it's important that you make sure you know your client and you're bringing things to the forefront that are effective for them. If you work with doctors or first responders, maybe you want to use terms that are familiar to them so that they can access things in their own working memory without feeling like a deficit or a disadvantage because they don't know states or countries or things like that. Just something to consider.
Yeah, one big advantage actually that I've been able to take out of the telehealth setting is having people relate their own personal space to the experience. So even though telehealth is obviously not normal. A lot of times it's not ideal for us in the normal world. We have to adapt to the situation. And part of that adaptation is allowing our clients to share pieces of their life that maybe they wouldn't normally be able to do. I found it especially effective with kids, but adults as well, either with grounding, because you're grounded in a safe space in your house, hopefully, where they're setting up their appointment. But it also works with taxing working memory and that dual attention kind of stimulus. Because I can use with kids, I work with kids a lot, about half of my caseload, and telehealth's even more difficult for kids because they have shorter attention spans in general, and trying to do an hour session over the computer, without mom and dad in there can be a little bit challenging. So working in their own toys, their own posters, things that they have around their own room while they're tapping or while they're following along on my EMDR app has been super helpful, keeping that dual attention. So there's 1 foot here while we're talking or trying to focus on 1 foot there in the past, and something that maybe is difficult for them to talk about, they can still keep it here and there. And it's worked really well for me.
Yeah.
That makes me think of something that I want to share, and it's just for clinicians who maybe aren't comfortable yet trying EMDR in this, in telehealth, is how successful it is, right? And I think that one thing we need to do is first and foremost to talk about how strange it is for me not to be with you, right? For me to just be seeing you on the screen, and just to validate the strangeness of our encounter that day and of the reason that we have the encounter, and to normalize that for the client and say, gosh, in a perfect world, this is not how I'd want to be doing it either. But, since we're here, let's go ahead and do, our EMDR, and let's continue to help you with your healing. Because even though it feels really different, it's EMDR, and that's such a robust protocol, and it works. I think everyone that we work with at Infinite is doing EMDR on telehealth, and it's as successful telehealth-wise as it is permanently. And I think that, we just have to say the obvious. I mean, I have a dog who sits with me for my morning sessions, and this dog can breathe like he's I don't know, a locomotive. I mean, he's just really loud, and so, I tell my clients, I'm like, well, there's my co-therapist, and he's helping me with dual attention, because you do have to pay attention to him and what I'm saying, as well as what you're working on. So I think that in that being creative and still doing EMDR with people, we got to use what's going on, right? I mean, you can't, you may control a whole lot of stuff. I can't control when Amazon delivers toilet paper to my house and my dogs go crazy, right? So you just have to be honest about what's going on. When that happens with them, you tell them that, but do it. Clinicians, get out there and do EMDR. Let's keep people healing in this really strange time.
Yeah, we're such a very lucky population that we know how to do this, and that we are able to still find an opportunity to be helpful and useful. I don't know about you guys, but this has kicked up a lot of stuff for people, this powerlessness, this collective vulnerability, this collective trauma that we're all going through. And it's really kicked up a lot. We don't have the same coping strategies that we would always have, working out and going to gyms and meeting with friends and going shopping, all the things that we could do to spend our life outside of our homes. We don't have those. And so I've noticed that clients, they're getting really activated with some of these things, not all, but some. And so the cool thing about EMDR therapy is we can use these, present triggers as portals into targets. And my experience has been, if you use the heat of now, more often than not, it's going into the past work we were already working on when we were still in my office. And so the past is present. It informs our experience now. And so just because the powerlessness that exists now is related to a pandemic doesn't mean it negates the powerlessness that they've had in their histories. And so you can still do a lot of really powerful work on their trauma histories or you can use it to help improve capacity in the now, and whatever's going on for them right now, you can use that to help them with their dysregulation and affect regulation for sure.
Absolutely. I wait.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our households are oftentimes some of the most triggering environments. And I know personally, I've had at least a handful of clients that I think because they were in that environment, they were more able to access some of that affect that maybe wouldn't have been as accessible in the office because they're actually in that environment at home. So I've definitely worked with that and cleared targets just based off of the proximity to the target we're working on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We say in EMDR therapy, you have to feel it to heal it. And we're excellent numbers. Humans are great at numbing. We find every way in the world to stop paying attention to the emotion in our body and in our life. And so when you're home and there's nowhere to run to, I'm thinking that song, nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. They can't hide from their emotions. And I'm like, let's use it. Let's use the heat. I had this happen with a couple of clients as well. Something was happening in another room and they're like, and I'm like, oh, I saw something that I haven't seen in my office. Can we use that? And it's been really powerful and great opportunity to chase the heat. And you can't heal it if you don't feel it. So I have a lot of gratitude for some of those moments that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten in the safe sanctity of my office that is their safe space. So that's been my experience. I really encourage you as therapists to really go for it. If you're going back into the office, there's a high likelihood that this may happen again with the shutdown and with an increase in cases. And so even if you're doing that, getting your clients more comfortable with the idea that this could happen again, I really encourage that if you are going back in. And if you're not ready for that, really jump in and use this time as a way to stretch in your own growth as well, right? Wherever there's discomfort, there's an opportunity for growth. So we really want to encourage that. And if you need consultation so that you can feel competent to remain within your scope, it's really important to look for consultation. There's great ways to find consultants, and we're happy to give you referrals for consultants in your area if you find that helpful. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming and talking with us today. And hopefully this will be helpful for you as clinicians and EMDR therapists in the community.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.